Tonight's story is not just another tale of shadows and fear. It's a personal account told by someone who swore they would never speak of it again. A story that begins in the warmth of family and everyday life and slowly descends into something darker. So dim the lights, silence the noise around you, and listen closely, because sometimes the most terrifying sound is just a whisper in the dark. I grew up in a small two-story house on the edge of town. Nothing about it seemed unusual. White walls, creaky stairs, and a backyard where my sister and I would play until the streetlights came on. My parents were always busy with work, but dinner together was a ritual. Life was ordinary, even boring sometimes. But looking back, the first signs were already there. It started one night when I was about 13. I woke up thirsty, the kind of dry, mouth thirst you can't ignore. The house was silent, except for the hum of the fridge downstairs. On my way to the kitchen, I paused at the bottom of the stairs because I heard something. A whisper. Not words I could understand, just the low hiss of someone murmuring in a tone too soft to belong in my home. I froze, straining my ears. My sister's door was closed upstairs. My parents' room, too. The living room was empty, dark except for the glow of the digital clock on the cable box. I told myself it was the house settling, or maybe the wind slipping through the old window frames. But the sound, it felt directed, as if it wanted me to notice. The next morning at breakfast, I mentioned it casually. "Did anyone hear whispering last night?" I asked. My dad chuckled without looking up from the newspaper. "You've been reading too many ghost stories." My sister rolled her eyes. "You probably dreamed it." I let it go. But that whispering became a pattern. Once or twice a week, usually past midnight, always when the house was quiet. Sometimes I'd hear it near the stairs. Other times, from the hallway outside my room. It wasn't loud, but it was there, an unmistakable cadence, as if two voices were trying to speak in secret. I started leaving my bedside lamp on. My grades slipped because I was exhausted at school. At night, I'd lie awake, pulling the blanket over my head like a child, waiting for the murmurs to start, and they always did. By the time I was 15, the whispers had become part of my nights. But then they changed. One evening after a fight with my sister, I went to bed angry. Around 2 a.m., I woke to the sound of breathing, slow, deliberate, right next to my bed. I sat up so fast my head spun. No one was there. But when I looked toward the corner of the room, my lamp flickered. The shadow in that corner, it didn't move like the rest of the room's darkness. It seemed thicker. Watching, I didn't sleep again that night. The next morning, I told my mom. She sighed and touched my forehead. "You're stressed. Maybe even depressed. It's all in your head." But I knew it wasn't, because the whispers weren't staying hidden anymore. One night, I heard them right outside my door. Clearer than ever, a man's voice low and urgent. A woman's softer, almost pleading. I pressed my ear to the door. And I swear I heard my name. My name, come here. My heart slammed in my chest. I yanked the door open, ready to catch my sister playing a prank. But the hallway was empty. Cold. I whispered back, trembling, "Who's there?" The reply came instantly, right behind me this time. A breath. A whisper too close. I screamed, waking my parents. My dad stomped down the hall, furious. "For God's sake, enough with the screaming!" "There's nothing here." I pointed, shaking, to where the sound had come from. But the hall was still, as though nothing had happened. That was the night my family stopped believing me. From then on, I kept it to myself. But the experiences escalated. My sheets tugged at night, as if someone invisible brushed past the bed. My closet door creaked open on its own. Once, I found muddy footprints on the carpet leading from the window to my bed. I tried convincing myself I was losing my mind. But every time I tried to dismiss it, the whisper came back stronger. One night, as I sat at my desk pretending to study, I felt hot air against my ear and a voice so sharp it made me cry out. The whisper wasn't soft anymore. It was commanding, angry, and for the first time I realized it didn't just want me to hear it. It wanted me to answer. I avoided my room as much as possible after that. I'd fall asleep on the couch or pretend to study late in the kitchen. But no matter where I went, the whisper followed. One night, after everyone had gone to bed, I sat alone in the living room. The TV was on mute, flickering light across the walls. I told myself I'd stay awake until dawn. That's when the static started. Not from the TV, but from the silence itself, like a low crackle filling the room. And then layered within it, the voices returned, louder now. Arguing, I couldn't make out the words, but I felt the emotion. Rage, desperation. Then the lights went out. I was plunged into darkness so heavy it felt physical. The TV, the lamps, even the streetlight outside gone. and in that suffocating black, the whisper moved closer. My name? It hissed. I bolted for the stairs, stumbling, my hands scraping against the wall. But halfway up, something grabbed my ankle, cold, rough, pulling me down. I kicked wildly, sobbing, and managed to break free. I didn't look back. I sprinted to my parents' room, banging on the door until my dad opened it. He saw my face, white as chalk, trembling, tear-streaked. He started to yell, but then he froze. Because behind me, in the hallway, the whisper carried through the air. Not faint anymore. Not hidden, but loud, guttural, and furious. Both my parents heard it. My sister, too, as she cracked open her door in terror. We all stood there, listening, as the house filled with a sound no human throat could make. A chorus of voices overlapping, snarling, whispering all at once. And then silence. The lights flicked back on. Everything was normal again. But none of us slept that night. The next morning, my dad avoided my eyes. My mom said we'd talk later, but she never brought it up again. Within a year, we moved out of that house. My parents never explained why. To this day, they refuse to acknowledge what happened. My sister won't even discuss it. But I know what I heard, what I felt. And sometimes, late at night in my new apartment, when the city is quiet and the hum of life fades into stillness, I still hear it. That same voice. Whispering, waiting. The story you've just heard leaves us with one final question. What if the things we dismiss as imagination are not illusions at all, but invitations? Whispers meant only for us to hear, waiting for us to answer. So tonight, when you turn off the lights and lie in silence, ask yourself, if you hear a whisper in the dark, will you pretend it's nothing? Or will you answer back? Because the moment you answer, it will no longer whisper.